Welcome to LexTalks Legal Topics,
Mm.
simplified your guide to navigating the world of law.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're diving deep into something you'll encounter a lot in your studies.
Yeah.
Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, the right to life and personal liberty.
Right.
We're going to explore what this deceptively simple statement really means, how it's
Huh.
become so powerful, and what it means for you as future lawyers.
You know what's fascinating about Article 21 is it's just one sentence.
Oh, wow.
No person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to a procedure established by law. But over time, through judicial interpretation, it's become the foundation for a whole bunch of rights.
Okay, I see the potential for unpacking here. So how did we go from one sentence to all these rights?
Mhm.
Where did it all begin?
Well, it started with understanding life and personal liberty as more than just their literal definitions. Early cases grappled with this, like the A.K. Gopalan case in 1950.
Okay.
So Gopalan was a communist leader, and he argued that his detention under the Preventive Detention Act violated his personal liberty, particularly his freedom of movement.
Interesting. So at this point, was freedom of movement considered a part of personal liberty?
That was Gopalan's argument, but the court took a more narrow view.
Okay.
They said personal liberty was limited to the freedom of your physical body, like the right to eat or sleep. Freedom of movement, they said, fell under Article 19, which deals with specific freedoms.
So they were drawing a line between like the broader freedoms in Article 19 and the more like immediate personal liberty in 21.
Exactly. It was compartmentalized. But then comes the Maneka Gandhi case in 1978,
Oh, yeah.
and the court threw a real curveball.
Right. This is the one where her passport was impounded. So
Yeah.
what was the curveball?
The court connected Articles 14, 19, and 21. They said they're not separate, they're interconnected, and this is where the golden triangle comes in. This is crucial for you as law students.
Okay, break down the golden triangle for me. Why is it so important for someone studying law?
Okay, so think of it this way. Before Maneka Gandhi, the government could argue that a law restricting your liberty was valid as long as it followed some procedure,
No.
even if the procedure itself was unfair.
So even if it was procedurally sound, it could still infringe on personal liberty.
Exactly. But after Maneka Gandhi, the game changed.
Yeah.
The court said any law impacting your personal liberty under Article 21 must also meet the standards of Articles 14 and 19. It has to be just fair and reasonable, and it can't infringe on your other fundamental rights.
Okay.
This is huge because it shifted the focus to substantive due process, where the court looks beyond just the procedure of a law to its actual impact.
So for us as law students, this means arguing a case based on Article 21 just got a whole lot more complex.
Exactly.
But it
And you can't just point to a procedure. You have to analyze the substance of the law and how it affects various fundamental rights.
So with this golden triangle in place,
Yeah.
how did Article 21 start expanding beyond the basic right to exist?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of rights started falling under its umbrella?
One of the most significant was the recognition of the right to privacy as a part of Article 21. This wasn't explicitly stated in the Constitution,
Right.
but the courts recognized that privacy is fundamental to living a life with dignity and autonomy.
And I'm guessing this has major implications for everything from data protection to surveillance.
Absolutely, but even before the digital age, the courts were grappling with the right to privacy.
Okay.
Take the case of Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India in 2018,
Right.
which decriminalized homosexuality.
Right. I remember studying that case. It was a landmark decision. But how do they tie it to Article 21?
The court said that criminalizing consensual homosexual relationships violated an individual's right to privacy, dignity, and personal liberty. They argued that Article 21 isn't just about survival, it's about the right to full personhood, which includes the freedom to make intimate choices without state interference.
So it's about choice and autonomy as essential elements of a life with dignity. And this idea of choice, did it play a role in other areas as well?
You bet. Think about the right to choose your own partner.
Okay.
In Latha Singh versus State of Uttar Pradesh, the court upheld intercaste marriages, even though they might go against societal norms by emphasizing the individual's right to choose.
So even if social pressures discourage something, the court said your personal liberty trumps that.
Exactly. They prioritize the individual's right to choose over societal pressures, and this principle extends to interfaith marriages as well.
Okay.
The court is essentially saying that your right to shape your life to make these fundamental choices is at the core of Article 21.
So it's not just about existing, it's about having the freedom to choose how you exist. This is pretty powerful stuff.
It is, and these cases were just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, wow.
Article 21 started branching out in so many directions, from protecting your reputation to ensuring basic necessities like a healthy environment.
Okay, before we get to those,
Yeah.
I'm curious about this reputation angle. How does that fit under Article 21?
Well, think about it. Your reputation is essentially how others perceive you, and that can have a huge impact on your life.
Sure.
Your opportunities, your well-being. In Subramanian Swamy versus Union of India, the court upheld the validity of criminal defamation laws because they protect an individual's right to reputation.
But isn't there a conflict there with freedom of speech?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you draw the line?
That's the constant balancing act the courts have to perform.
Right.
They acknowledge that freedom of speech is crucial, but it's not absolute. If someone spreads false information that damages your reputation, it can have serious consequences. So they saw protecting reputation as essential for a life with dignity.
So Article 21 isn't just about preventing physical harm.
Yeah.
It's also about safeguarding your social standing and how you're perceived in the world.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the multifaceted nature of human existence and the various elements that contribute to a life of dignity and worth.
This is really making me rethink the scope of Article 21. It's much broader and more nuanced than I initially thought.
And we haven't even touched upon the right to a healthy environment, medical care, or education, all of which have found their place under Article 21.
Well, I can't wait to dive into those. This is already so much more than just a dry legal concept. It's about the very essence of what it means to live a meaningful life.
Let's talk about the right to a healthy environment.
Okay.
You might be thinking, how does that fit into Article 21?
Yeah.
But the courts have made a strong connection there.
I'm all ears. How do they bridge that gap?
They looked at it through the lens of dignity. Can you truly live a dignified life? If the air you breathe or the water you drink is polluted,
Right.
if your surroundings are constantly threatening your health.
Yeah, good point. It's hard to feel any sense of dignity or well-being when you're constantly struggling to survive in a toxic environment.
Exactly. The courts recognize this in landmark cases like MC Mehta versus Union of India, which dealt with mining in the Aravalli Hills. They didn't just say that the mining was illegal.
Right.
They went a step further.
What did they do?
They prohibited mining in that area to protect the environment and even set up a committee to oversee the restoration of environmental quality.
Wow, so they were proactively trying to remedy the damage that had already been done. They weren't just focused on punishment, they were focused on solutions.
Precisely. This is where Article 21 starts to get really interesting for you as future lawyers.
Okay.
It's not just about individual rights, it's about the collective good, the well-being of society as a whole.
Right.
It gives you a powerful tool to argue for environmental protection,
Right.
for sustainable development,
Yeah.
for the right of future generations to inherit a healthy planet.
It's almost like a constitutional call to action.
And it doesn't stop there. Think about the right to medical care.
Okay.
Can you have a life with dignity if you're denied basic health care? If you can't access treatment when you're sick or injured?
That seems pretty fundamental. You
Those-
can't really enjoy any other rights if you're struggling just to stay alive.
Exactly. The courts have repeatedly upheld the right to medical care as a core component of Article 21.
Okay.
A case that exemplifies this is Parmananda Katara versus Union of India.
Remind me about the details of that case.
It involved a doctor who refused to treat an injured man because the police hadn't arrived yet.
Seriously, that's appalling.
It is, and the court took a strong stance.
Yeah.
They said preserving life takes precedence over procedural formalities. They said that no medical professional should be harassed for providing immediate medical assistance.
Right.
It was a powerful statement about the importance of accessible health care, especially in emergency situations.
So it's not just about the availability of healthcare in the abstract. It's about making sure that it's actually accessible to everyone who needs it when they need it.
Precisely, and this responsibility extends to the government as well.
Okay.
The case of Paschim Venkaket Mazdor Samiti versus State of West Bengal was pivotal here.
What happened in that one?
It centered on the government's obligation to provide adequate medical facilities. The court emphasized that in a welfare state, ensuring proper health care for citizens is a primary responsibility, not an option.
It seems like the courts are weaving a safety net,
Yeah,
making sure that the most vulnerable members of society aren't left behind.
exactly. And this principle of ensuring basic necessities for a dignified life
Right.
applies to education as well.
Yeah.
You can't fully participate in society, exercise your rights, or reach your potential without education.
Right. I've heard about the right to education being a fundamental right. But how did it become enshrined in the Constitution?
It was a gradual process,
Oh.
starting with cases like Mohini Jain versus State of Karnataka and Unikrishnan JP versus State of AP.
Hmm.
These cases laid the groundwork for recognizing education as a basic human right.
Well,
They argued that without education,
right.
individuals are disempowered and trapped in cycles of poverty.
So it's about breaking down barriers and creating equal opportunities.
Exactly. And this judicial push ultimately led to the 86th Amendment of the Constitution,
Okay.
which added Article 21A, the right to education.
Hmm.
It guarantees free and compulsory education for all children between the ages of 6 and 14.
That's huge. It's not just about basic literacy. It's about giving every child the chance to develop their skills, pursue their dreams, and contribute to society.
Precisely. It's about realizing the potential within each individual and empowering them to live fulfilling lives. And speaking of fulfilling lives,
Yeah.
there's another dimension to Article 21 that often sparks heated debate:
Okay.
the right to shelter.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought about that one.
Mm.
How does shelter tie into this idea of a dignified life?
Think about it. Can you truly live with dignity without a safe and secure place to call home?
Hmm.
Can you develop your full potential if you're constantly worried about where you're going to sleep each night?
It's a pretty essential need, like food and water.
Yeah.
It's hard to focus on anything else when you lack that basic security.
Exactly. And the courts have recognized this in Shanisar Builders versus Narayan Kimlal Totami.
Hmm.
They made a powerful statement saying that a reasonable accommodation to live in
Right.
is crucial for human growth,
Okay.
both physically and intellectually.
So the right to shelter isn't just about having a roof over your head. It's about having a space that allows you to thrive, to grow as a person.
Yes, and this was further emphasized in Shimeli Singh versus State of Uttar Pradesh,
Hmm.
which specifically addressed the issue of shelter for the weaker sections of society.
Okay.
The court stressed that providing adequate shelter is not just a matter of charity, it's a fundamental obligation of the state to ensure the well-being of its citizens.
It seems like Article 21 is constantly challenging the status quo,
Right.
pushing for a more just and equitable society where everyone has access to the basic necessities of life.
And that's what makes it so dynamic and relevant,
Yeah.
even in the face of new and emerging challenges.
Speaking of challenges, we've talked about the right to life. But what about the right to die?
Yeah.
Has that ever come up in relation to Article 21?
It has, and it's one of the most complex and sensitive issues the courts have grappled with.
Okay.
The debate around euthanasia or mercy killing is ongoing in India with strong arguments on both sides.
So is it legal or not? I'm a bit confused.
It's complicated. Active euthanasia,
Uh-huh.
where you deliberately take action to end a patient's life, is illegal.
Okay, that makes sense. What about passive euthanasia?
Passive euthanasia, where you withdraw life support or medical treatment, allowing the patient to die naturally, is legal in certain circumstances, but it's heavily regulated
Right.
with very specific guidelines.
Yeah.
The landmark case here is Aruna Shanbhag versus Union of India.
Right, that was a heartbreaking case. Can you refresh my memory on the details?
Aruna Shanbhag was a nurse who was brutally assaulted and left in a vegetative state for over 40 years.
Oh, wow.
The court, in a landmark decision, allowed passive euthanasia in cases where the patient is in a persistent vegetative state with no hope of recovery,
Right.
and where the family or guardians are in agreement.
So the court essentially recognized the right to die with dignity in certain very specific situations.
Exactly. It was a controversial ruling,
Yeah.
but it opened up a crucial dialogue about end-of-life care, patient autonomy, and the limits of medical intervention.
It seems like Article 21 is pushing us to confront some of the most fundamental questions about life, death, and what it means to live and die with dignity.
It certainly is, and these questions don't get any easier as technology advances, and we face new ethical dilemmas.
Before we get too existential, I want to circle back to something we touched upon earlier.
Yeah.
The right to a safe working environment, especially for women.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like Article 21 has played a crucial role in this area as well.
You're absolutely right. Protecting women's rights in the workplace has been a key focus of judicial activism under Article 21. The Vishaka Guidelines were a game changer in this regard.
The Vishaka Guidelines remind me what those were about.
They were a set of procedural guidelines for preventing and addressing sexual harassment at the workplace.
Okay.
They came about because of the Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan case in 1997.
So before these guidelines, there was no legal framework for dealing with sexual harassment at work.
Sadly, that's right. Women were often left with no recourse, no way to seek justice, but the Vishaka case changed everything.
Okay.
The court recognized that sexual harassment violates a woman's fundamental rights to equality, life, and liberty.
That's a pretty powerful statement.
Yeah.
So did these guidelines become law?
Yes, the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act of 2013 essentially codified the Vishaka Guidelines, making it mandatory for employers to create mechanisms for preventing and addressing sexual harassment.
Okay.
This includes things like setting up internal complaint committees,
Right.
conducting awareness programs, and ensuring a safe working environment for women.
It's incredible how a single case can spark a movement and lead to legislative changes that protect millions of women. It shows the transformative power of the law and the judiciary's willingness to use Article 21 to address critical social issues.
And it's not just about reacting to existing problems, it's about anticipating future challenges and adapting Article 21 to meet them head on.
What kinds of challenges?
Think about the digital age data privacy phone tapping.
Hmm.
These are all areas where Article 21 is being tested and reinterpreted
Okay.
to ensure that our fundamental rights are protected in this new landscape.
Right, with technology advancing so rapidly, it's easy for our privacy to get trampled on.
Exactly. That's why the case of K.S. Pradeswamy versus Union of India was so crucial.
Okay.
It explicitly recognized the right to privacy as a fundamental right under Article 21.
This is the Adhar case, right? I remember reading about it.
Yes, the petitioners challenged the Adhar program, arguing that it violated their privacy. And the Supreme Court agreed, ruling that privacy is intrinsic to life and liberty. This decision has far-reaching implications for data protection surveillance and the use of technology in India.
So even though the Constitution doesn't explicitly mention data privacy,
Right.
the courts have interpreted Article 21 broadly enough to encompass it.
Precisely. They've adapted it to the digital age, ensuring that it remains relevant and continues to protect our fundamental rights in this new frontier.
I'm starting to see why Article 21 is often called the heart and soul of the Indian Constitution. It seems like it's constantly expanding, evolving, and adapting to protect the very core of what it means to live a dignified, meaningful life in a constantly changing world.
That's a great way to put it. It's not just a static set of rules.
Right.
It's a living, breathing document that reflects the aspirations and struggles of a nation, striving to uphold the values of justice, equality, and human dignity.
This has been an incredible exploration of Article 21. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of its scope and power.
It's been my pleasure to delve into this fascinating topic with you, but remember, this is just the beginning.
Oh, wow.
There's so much more to explore.
Right.
So many nuances and applications of Article 21 that we haven't even touched upon.
Well, I'm definitely eager to learn more. It seems like every case, every debate adds another layer of complexity and depth to our understanding of this remarkable article. We've covered so much, from the right to privacy and a healthy environment to education and medical care.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much is packed into this one article.
It is.
And I used to think of it as just the right to life,
Right.
but it's so much more.
Yeah, it's about the right to live with dignity, with the freedom to make choices, and
Right.
with access to basic necessities.
And it's not just a static list. It keeps evolving to meet new challenges.
Yeah.
That's what I find so fascinating. It shows how the legal system can adapt to protect people's rights, even in situations the framers of the Constitution couldn't have imagined.
Absolutely. It's a testament to their foresight that they created something so flexible. Like they
Yeah.
built in a mechanism for growth and adaptation.
Like a living, breathing thing responding to its environment.
I like that analogy. It shows how Article 21 is constantly being reinterpreted in light of new situations and social realities.
Before we wrap up, I'm curious about the challenges surrounding Article 21 today. What are the big questions that lawyers and judges are grappling with?
Well, one of the biggest is balancing individual liberty with national security. In an age of terrorism and cyber threats, the government often argues for more surveillance powers,
Right.
which sometimes clashes with the right to privacy.
So it's back to drawing those lines in the sand again,
Exactly.
like we saw with the telephone tapping case. But this time, the stakes are even higher.
They are, and with technology evolving so rapidly, it's a constant struggle to keep up.
Right.
Another challenge is figuring out how Article 21 applies to new technologies like AI. How do we protect individual autonomy and dignity in a world where algorithms are making more and more decisions?
Right. That's a whole other deep dive waiting to happen.
It is, and then there are the ongoing debates around euthanasia.
Right.
The Aruna Shambhat case opened up so many ethical and legal questions that we're still grappling with. How do we balance the right to life with the right to die with dignity? Who gets to make those decisions?
These are really weighty issues.
Yeah.
It seems like Article 21 will continue to be at the center of legal and societal debates for a long time.
Without a doubt, and for you as future lawyers, it's crucial to engage with these debates,
Yeah.
to think critically about the implications of Article 21, and to use your legal knowledge to advocate for a more just and equitable world.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of Article 21 now, not just as a legal concept, but as a reflection of our values as a society.
I'm glad to hear that. Remember, studying law isn't just about memorizing cases and statutes, it's about understanding the principles behind them, the values they embody, and the impact they have on people's lives.
Well said. I feel inspired to use my legal education to make a real difference in the world. Thanks for sharing your expertise with me.
My pleasure. Keep that passion for justice burning bright, and you'll go far.
And thank you for listening to LexTalks. Don't forget to subscribe, and stay tuned for more deep dives into the fascinating world of Indian law.